What's up, guys? Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going through how you could build an Apple Watch companion app for your iOS apps. So maybe you have an iPhone app or an iOS app and you're thinking about making or creating a watch OS or Apple Watch component for the app or of the app. And we're going to be going through how to do that. And in our case, in this macro tracker, we are going to be using the Apple Watch to actually send data or send the request to OpenAI. And from that request, we're going to then send that to our phone to save it into SwiftData. So that sounds a little crazy, right? So let's get into it. The first thing we need to do is we need to go here, you click on this and you get taken here and we want to hit plus. And we need to go to watchOS and we want to select this one. Make sure you're selecting app. All right, then we hit next and you can name it. So this would be macro tracker watch, or you could do watch macro tracker. All right, and you want to make sure you do watch app for an existing iOS app and you will select our app. And in your case, you'll select your app if you're using a different one. Hit finish. You can just hit activate. Now we need to go here and create a file. And this file is basically going to be the file that's going to handle connectivity between the iPhone and the Apple Watch. And we're going to create two, one for the iPhone to connect to the Apple Watch and one for the Apple Watch to connect to the iPhone. You could just use one file, but we're going to create two because in each of these files, there's going to be different things being done depending on if it's from the iPhone or from the Apple Watch. So that's why I'm going to break it into two functions. Because you could just have it all in one, or not two functions, two classes, because you could have it all in one. But then you're going to be exposing certain functions that could be called from the iPhone or vice versa, called from the Apple Watch when they aren't related to it. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So we will call this watch connector. And this has to be an NS object. Hit Command B, and then we have to create a session and we have to actually import. We have to import watch connectivity, which I don't think we have. Do we have? Go to your project and under frameworks and embedded content, look up watch and make sure you add that. I believe it's added though. We are going to try to do it without it, but if we get an issue, make sure you add watch connectivity here. All right. And then we can say watch kit session on the initialization. What do we want to happen? We can set this by default so we don't have to do this ourselves. And we want to do a few things. Set this equal to self. We need to set the delegate equal to self here, and we want the session to activate. We need to conform to the delegate now. And if you click on this, it'll fix it for you. Come on, Xcode. There we go. Screw you. I want it to auto fix for me. There we go. You get this, and I'm going to cut this and put it down below. Cool. And we don't need this. Command B. And we need to actually call super.init here in order to use self. And now this basically establishes the connection between our iPhone and the Apple Watch. But we'll have to create a file here that does the same. So I'm going to call this watch to iOS connector. Let's move this up here and I used camel case for the file. No, I didn't mean to. Just have it. Let's capitalize the W. So we can actually just copy this, paste it in here. For the Apple Watch, you don't use these functions, and it's pretty much good to go. All right. So now we need to create some functions here. The first thing is from the Apple Watch side, and we need to change the name here actually, because I don't want it to have the same name. And we weren't getting an error because they're in different frameworks, or they're in different targets. So there wasn't any conflict, but I changed the name just so we know more exactly what it's doing. And this is going to be send macro to iPhone, or we'll say iOS. And this is going to send our macro, which is our SwiftData model, to our, where's our model? So here we go, to our phone. And if I'm being honest, we're not sending the macro itself or the model itself. We're doing like a little hack around. You'll see in a second. All right. And the function we need to bring in here is did receive message. this one, and this is actually where we are going to receive the messages from the Apple Watch So this is the most important function. Let's go to the content view though, and let's look at our Apple Watch. All right, this is working. And let's set it up a little bit. So we are gonna want a text field. What's the placeholder? What did you eat? And we need to create a state var here called food. And another one for the date. Okay, food. Let's see. All right, we got the text field. Now we need our date picker, and we can bind it to date, and we want a button with an action and a label. Cool, and this label would be done. Refresh this. To fix this, we can set a frame max width dot infinity, max height dot infinity. Or actually what we can do is we can just say ignore safe area. Boom, there we go. And here we'll have to make the request to OpenAI. So let's create a func here, send food to OpenAI. All right, and then, so let's do that. So if we try to call the OpenAI service, it's not gonna let us. To solve for that, you go here to your project, click on the watch target, go to your build rules or build phases, compile sources, hit a plus, and we will bring in OpenAI. All right, and now you'll see that we have errors, and that's because when we do this, any class, model, or any type of data that is not in OpenAI service, the watch target does not know about. So it's like, what? It's like, what's going on? So we need to also add those. So these pretty much, yeah, we need to add these. What else do we need to add? And we need to add secrets. Hit Command B. And you should see your errors go away. If you still get errors, then make sure that you've brought in everything into your compile source here for the Apple Watch target. So now here I have access to this, and I can just create a task here and a do catch. We're not doing real error handling here, but we're at least catching something. And here we will call OpenAI service.share.send prompt, and this will be food. And this actually returns us a result. Hit Command B. And I actually want this only to be done if, actually no, what we can do is we can just disable this button if food.count is less than 3. There shouldn't be that many food items that are 2 letters or 1 letter. Yeah, it's disabled. If I add a bunch of letters, it's enabled. Cool. All right, so this happens, and then we need to func send macro to iPhone or iOS. Hit Command B, and in here we're gonna take a result, because this is actually gonna be a macro result, and we're gonna convert that into a macro. I believe we already did that here in our add macro view, so we can literally just copy this, go back here, paste it in there, good old copy and paste it. All right, so this creates a macro. Then we need to call our watch to iOS connector. And in here, we need to make this require a macro when we call this function. Oh, and one crucial thing I forgot about this is this has to conform to observed object or observable object. If you don't do this, you'll get an issue and you'll figure out what the hell is going on. And if you try to be smart, or if you try to be smart and try to use observation, it's not gonna work. Or I mean, maybe it'll work. Maybe I was doing it wrong, but I did it and I was banging my head for 30 minutes. Like, why? Because I was trying to use observation and not observed object, and that was giving me issues. So just use observable object and go along with your day. We will call this watch connector. And actually, we don't even need to initialize it here. We can initialize this in our content view. Hit Command B, and then we can call watch connector dot send macro. Cool. And now this sets up all our UI, or not our UI, but yeah, like this sets up pretty much everything in our Apple Watch. The last thing, let's just wrap this up. So we need to call send macro, and we will pass in the result here. The last thing I want to do is I want to create a state var to handle when this is loading, because you don't want the user to be able to do stuff while it's like the network request is being made. So an easy way around that is create a Z stack or a Z stack. And if it is loading, we are just going to show a primary opacity of like 0.7. And we'll just show a progress circle or progress view. And if you want to see how it looks like when it's loading, just change this to true. And that's what it looks like. I believe if we add a max width of infinity here and max height infinity, not here, but let's add it to the Z stack. So it looks like it's not doing anything for the Z stack. If we ignore the safe areas, there we go. And you see this is not clickable. We're not able to interact with the Apple Watch here when it's loading, which is the intended effect. And we set this equal to true here. And then we will set it equal to false when this completes or when this fails. So that's about it. This looks good to me. We can set this equal to false now. Let's refresh this. False. Cool. And let's send food to OpenAI. Let's try to run that. Let's see. So let's not send it. Let's just print the result. This will let us know if this is actually working. So I'm gonna run this on the actual simulator taco, or just beef tacos. Done. And we had it a month ago. Done. All right, so it's loading. It finished loading, and hey, we get it right here. Not bad nutritional count for that. So that means this is working, which is dope. We're now able to communicate with OpenAI from the Apple Watch, which is fire. It's cool. It's cool. And now we need to go to our connectors and we need to figure out what the hell we're doing. So in here, when you want to send data to the iPhone, you first want to check that the session is reachable, which means it's connected. Else, print session is not reachable, which means there's no connection to the iPhone. And then based off of that, you would call session, send message, and you would use whichever these you want to use. I believe you could use this one if you were trying to send a SwiftData model, but you would need your model to conform to Codable. And that's a whole different process. And that's something we haven't covered in this series. But what we're going to use message, and you can pass in a dictionary there. And that sends the dictionary from your watch to your iPhone. And you could do it vice versa. But again, we're in the watch to iOS connector here. And this can be nil. This is just a reply handler in case you want something to happen, or in case there's a reply that's supposed to happen with the communication. And now I'm going to create the data, which is just going to be a dictionary. And what I'm going to do is, so for my macro, these are the available properties in the macro. So I'm just going to, I believe there's a command so you can delete all of these at the same time, but I haven't learned it. All right, we are going to have a dictionary with with all of these properties, and we'll just pass it like that. And that's the data that's the data that we're gonna pass to the iPhone. And if you're interested in what I'm doing, so I highlight it and then I hit shift and then the quotation marks, and that does this. And then there's macros. This is food. I'm gonna copy this, paste that in here. So this is created at. This is date. This is carbs, this is fats, this is protein. And we actually need to declare that this is going to be a dictionary from string to any. Otherwise, Xcode is like, sir, what is going on? Oh, and we need commas here for all of these, except for the last one. Cool. And this will send it to the iPhone. We can test this actually, but first we need to go back here and just print the message. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna print this message. All right, before we test this, and right here, you should see we're in our iPhone here. This is the iPhone side of things. And when we receive a message from the Apple Watch, we're going to print the message. And in here, we are sending the message, which will be this data here. And before we actually run this, we need to go back to our project and go to the target for the actual iPhone app and add watch connectivity here to the frameworks. This is something that if you don't do, then you will have issues with the communication. So definitely make sure you do this. Now we're gonna run the iPhone and we're gonna run the Apple Watch. So this is the iPhone. And one thing to note is when you run this, all right, so make sure you select the device you created. And now I'm gonna switch to Apple Watch and run that as well. We should see it load up here. All right, and now we can try to fill this out. Let's say we had some soup, which is very generic, but I guess it'll generate some data. And we run this. Did we get any info? It looks like we didn't. Make sure that so we called this here, right? Yeah, we're calling our watch connector here. All right, and here we have this part. Okay, we initialized it here and we're sending it. All right, so this should be getting sent off. I'm gonna run this again and and then I'm gonna switch to the iPhone version and run this. Let's say we had a cookie. There we go. Oh, and if we look down here, this is the soup. I didn't even notice. It just took a second for it to send off to the iPhone. And if we wait a little bit longer, we should get the cookie. So that means it's working. And this is being received by the iPhone. All right, so you see here, this is being printed from this. So now in this did receive message function, we can actually create our macro here based off this data that's being received. So we're gonna create a macro and hit enter. I'm gonna fix the formatting here. Cool, and then this would be message food as string. Since it's optional, we cast it like this. You can paste this for all of them and then we just have to do some changes. Whoa, I'm just, this will throw you some errors by the way, but we'll fix them one at a time as they come. This is as a date. All right, there we go. And if it fails, we do date.now. And for this, we can do 0 if it fails. Actually, we can do int and 0. Then all you have to do is copy this and then highlight this, paste it in there. Cool. Here, Command B, string. Cool, this is our macro. And now how are we gonna save this? And we're using SwiftData, so this is actually pretty interesting because if you've played around with SwiftData, it's kind of tricky on how you can use it without the view. But in our case, we can actually create a variable here for the model context, which will be of type model context, and it'll be an optional, and we set it equal to nil at first. And we actually need to import SwiftData for this. Cool. And then you just call model context.insert macro. And this will save it on your iPhone. The only thing we need to do though is we need to go to our macro view where we are instantiating this watch connector. And on up here, we want to say watch connector. Let's do that again. Watch connector dot model context equals, we'll set it equal to the model context here. But to do so, we need to create a reference to the model context. You may be thinking to do this in your app file, but you actually get an error because I don't believe you have access to the model context in your app file with SwiftUI and SwiftData. All right, let's see. This looks good to go. Now we just, we have to test it, right? It's the only thing left. Let's test it. So I'm gonna run the Apple Watch and I'm gonna run the iPhone. And if this works, this information should change. All right, what are we doing it for? So let's see. What's a food item that's not that hard to spell? Because this is tricky with the, let's say we ate a pear. Done. And we're going to use today's date. Hit done. Cool. And now we have to give it a second because this is not going to be done automatically. Take some time. We probably should have been printing something so we could see what's going on. But, oh, look at that. It's working. And, oh, this was pretty cool because this is today's date. So this updated and this updated. And that's how many carbs are in a pear and one gram of protein. Cool. You learn something new every day. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up the video here. Woo! We finally built we built out the Apple Watch companion app to our macro tracker. And I hope you've been enjoying this series. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think down below. And let me know if there's anything that you want to see in the future or if you have any issues. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.